Flanked by rustic farms and cities well renowned for art and cuisine is the magnificent Mugello circuit, hosted the Brembo Grand Prix of Italy. It's round 7 of the 50th anniversary of Grand Prix racing here in the Tuscany Mountains. Mugello first on the calendar in 1976. Saturday has already been spectacular, and it's the sprint next live. It's time for MotoGP. What a venue, what a location, what a Grand Prix circuit. It is Mugello, it is the fastest circuit on the calendar. This morning in FP2, Jorge Martin set a new all-time top speed record, followed up quickly by his factory Aprilia teammate Marco Bezzecchi, roaring to a home pole position. Aprilia looking out the front row of the grid for the very first time. Sector 3 was where Marco Bezzecchi was really pummeling the opposition this morning as you sweep through Arrabbiata 1 and 2, Biondetti 1 and 2 as well. Demanding braking points, plenty of them, particularly in a turn 1 where you're decelerating at almost 300 kilometres an hour. Turn 15, going to be careful with the time management through there. And overtaking hot spots aplenty, including this run down to the first corner. This was Marc and Alex Marquez versus Pecco Bagnaia last year. Well, 13 days ago at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, after a couple of serious incidents involving Alex Marquez and Joan Zarco, it was Raul Fernandez trying to hunt down early leader Pedro Acosta when he had this controversial collision with Jorge Martin. Frustration for the former MotoGP world champion. Coming through, though, from the second row, and fighting his way through to the front eventually was the fast Fabio Di Giannantonio. This was his late move on Pedro Acosta. More controversy coming the way of Trackhouse Aprilia, and Pedro Acosta was dumped off the podium contention at the last corner by Ayagura. But for the first time since Qatar 2023, Fabio Di Giannantonio victorious, and we thought he might be on pole position once again here in front of his home crowd. The pole starter in Mugello of 2022, he was fastest in all 3 practice sessions, with Digia with work to do, 7th on the grid for the home crowd favourite. Good afternoon and welcome one and all to the Brembo Grand Prix of Italy. What a sprint Saturday we have already had here in the Tuscany Mountains. For so many years, the 50th anniversary of Grand Prix motorcycle racing here at the spectacular Mugello circuit. This place, this track has delivered something extra special, and once again, that was the case this morning. What a day it's been so far for Aprilia. Jorge Martin blasting through the speed traps this morning at 368.6 kilometers an hour, 230.1 miles an hour to obliterate the old all-time speed record. And then to cap off what was a stunning Saturday morning for the Nuali factory, Marco Bezzecchi said, well, okay, if Jorge's got the FP2 headlines, I'll hold them in Q2 as the World Championship leader. Produced the lap of his life, the best lap we've ever seen here in Mugello, a 1:43.921. We've finally broken the 1:44 barrier, and the result of all of that is that Marco Bezzecchi starts on pole position for the 11th time in his MotoGP career. And if it couldn't get any better for Aprilia after the top speed record and Bez's pole position, for the first time in their history, Aprilia have locked out the entire front row of the grid here in Mugello. First time no Ducati is going to feature on the front row here in their home Grand Prix since 2011, when we had a front row of Casey Stoner, Ben Spies and the late great Marco Simoncelli. Can Aprilia, though, continue their sparkling form in sprints and Grand Prix? Top 2 in the World Championship are Bezzecchi and Martin. Raul Fernandez is one of those 3 Aprilias on the front right of the grid. Perfect conditions, a gorgeous late May Saturday here in the Tuscany Mountains, ahead of an 11-lap Tissot sprint. But surely it's going to see 3 Aprilias fighting for the latest 12 points on offer. In the company of Matt Burt, Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box, a sun-drenched Jack Appleyard down in pit lane. Looking forward to this one. So much excitement, so much anticipation ahead of this 11-lap sprint. And Lewis, Saturdays do not get any better than this one today as far as Aprilia, Marco Bezzecchi, Ralph Fernandez and Jorge Martin are concerned.
Certainly not so far. A perfect qualifying session for them, locking out the front row of the grid. A first for the factory Aprilia team. Really turning the tables on Ducati, who looked like they had the legs as far as the Italian manufacturers were concerned yesterday in practice, when Ducati's locked out 5 of the top 6 places, and the first Aprilia was Bezzecchi in 7th. Whatever they found overnight, it clearly worked, because not only did they break that all-time top speed record with Jorge Martin, but they locked out the front row of the grid. And this is all fascinating in light of the fact that the rules and engagement amongst the Aprilia quartet of riders have been reinforced since Barcelona last time out.
Race hard, but race with respect. That is the clear message. This was Paolo Bonora, Aprilia Racing team manager, speaking to Jack yesterday. We had a meeting, which you can see being convened right now in the factory Aprilia Hospitality. All team management and all 4 riders summoned to meet the headmaster. We had a meeting with our 4 riders and the message was clear. Respect. Total respect. We'll find out if that message is going to be heeded over the course of the 34 racing laps here. What a moment, though, it is for Massimo Rivola. He's had that smile on his face since FP1 yesterday. It's all smiles at the moment, isn't it, as far as Aprilia are concerned. But this was Marco Bezzecchi ploughing his way through Sector 3, where he was completely on a different level this morning. A 1:43.921. A heck of a lap by Marco Bezzecchi. Brilliant, brilliant lap. Aprilia's first Mugello pole position since Tetsuya Harada in the 500cc 2 straight days back in 1999. And credit to Ralph Fernandez, he picked his track position perfectly. He was, what, about 150 metres back of Bez to secure just his 5th front row start in his 85th MotoGP appearance. A dream day so far. Fairy tale stuff this so far for Aprilia. But the most important business is still to come over the sprint and the Grand Prix tomorrow.
And we're talking about a rider in Marco Bezzecchi who has yet to win a sprint in 2026. Of course, has made several key errors in sprints so far this season as he dons the Alex Zanardi replica tribute crash helmet. Of course, Zanardi, a legend of Italian motorsport and just a genuinely Italian sport, of course. A former Formula 1 driver, lost his legs in a horrible crash in Germany back in his Indy career, and then managed to reinvent himself and become a Olympic gold medalist. He is held in such high esteem, of course, passed away earlier this year, so Marco Bezzecchi paying tribute to him. And what a tribute he paid by taking pole position earlier today. Panning
for the thoughts right now of Ducati Tech Supremo Gigi Dall'Igna, as mentioned, for the first time in 15 years. Ducati in their home Grand Prix don't have any representation on the front row of the grid. Aprilia are locking out the front row. Ducati do, though, lock out the second row of the grid. In fact, the next 4 places on the grid all are Ducatis. Row 2 led by the brilliant Marc Marquez. What a return it has been for Marc. We haven't seen him in competitive action since the Le Mans sprint. Fermin Aldeguerra's season best 5th for the Mandalika winner last year, and completing that second row of the grid is Pecco Bagnaia, a 3-time winner here in Mugello. Just a little bit of a footnote as well. Bagnaia's victories here in 2022 and in 2024, they did come from the second row of the grid.
Yeah, he's usually so dynamic, isn't he, on the first lap here at Mugello. I think the riders ahead of him, surely they'll be prepared for the Bagnaia lunge into turn 2, which is what we often see on the first lap. He went from 5th to the lead, didn't he, a couple of years ago, and ended up winning the Grand Prix with great comfort. So Bagnaia will certainly have his eyes forward from that second row.
First front row start, another box ticked as far as Jorge Martin is concerned. 28-year-old Spaniard, his first front row for Aprilia, his first front row in 16 Grand Prix since the Sepang battle over in Malaysia in 2024. What a race that turned out to be between him and Pecco Bagnaia on that occasion. Some other riders well worthy of mentioning, and we will do moving forward into our coverage, but Diogo Moreira caught the eye. Well, he's caught the eye throughout the weekend. First time we've seen a Brazilian go into Q2 this season, and he made it pay. The Pro Honda LCR Honda rider will start from the middle of the 3rd row in 8th place. He's squeezed in between the 2 VR46 Ducatis of Fabio Di Gianantonio and Frankie Morbidelli.
Becoming a bit of an expert tactician, isn't he, in practice and qualifying sessions right now is Diogo Moreira, with his relatively little experience, but he still certainly knows where he needs to be when he gets that crucial qualifying lap in. On board with Marc Marquez as he gets set to head to the grid. 4th top non-Aprilia on the grid. which, given the strength of the Nawali bikes earlier on today, I guess is about as good as it could have got for Marc Marquez in qualifying. But I'm fascinated to see how he tackles this Tissot sprint. Does he demonstrate his usual Marquez aggression, or is he more going to be focused on staying out of trouble and just making sure he gets to the checker flag in one piece with some points?
First time in 4 years, Marc Marquez off the front row of the grid here in Mugello. Back in 2022, the last time Marc wasn't occupying a slot in the top 3 on the grid. 85 points he is behind Marco Bezzecchi in the World Championship. We've got an awful lot of racing still to run in 2026, and trust us, no rider in MotoGP right now is writing Marc Marquez off as a championship contender. Riders leaving the pit lane. Let's go down on to the grid, though. A couple of former Premier League football stars enjoying the Mugello sunshine. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and David Bentley with Jack.
Yeah, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, David Bentley, Carlo Cudicini, some Premier League greats down here. Jimmy, I'll start with you. I imagine this your first opportunity to experience MotoGP in the flesh. What an experience it is, I imagine.
How do you know it's my first time?
Well, potentially it's not.
Do you look? See?
I can see the shock on your face.
Yeah, you're right. It's my first time, and I'm shocked. It's a brilliant experience to see. It's yeah, really nice, and I can't believe that I haven't done it before.
Yeah, well, come back again, David. We saw the new top speed record go this morning, nearly 230 miles an hour. Do you fancy jumping on one of these?
I would love to, but how scary is that? 230. I can't believe the energy. It just pulsates through your body. It's unbelievable what they do and what the guys, the speed that they go at and the risk to their life to go that speed. It's unbelievable to watch. Love every minute of it. Unbelievable.
I'll try and grab a quick word. Thank you, David, with Carlo Cudicini. Just before I go, Carlo, very quickly. I know you're taking a video quickly. The atmosphere here, how does it compare to something like Stamford Bridge? What is the atmosphere like?
I know. I guess that, every sports got different, and different atmosphere. The crowd, anyway, I know from Formula One is, motor racing is just unbelievable, and it's my first experience here. So, being an Italian, obviously, I'm proud that we have such a great event here in Italy.
Great to see you here. I'll let you get back to your videos. Don't miss any.
Thank you.
There we go. Great to chat with 3 Premier League greats, guys.
Yeah, awesome work, Jack. Brilliant stuff down there on the grid. It sounds like, as far as Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and David Bentley concerned, this won't be their last visit to the MotoGP World Championship. What a race they picked to come to. What a day they picked to experience MotoGP for the first time, witnessing trackside the top speed record broken here today. Great to welcome some of our Premier League greats onto the grid. Marquez then, 4th, a 144.294 from the Spaniard. That's the fastest lap Marc's ever set around Mugello, but still not good enough to topple the trio of Aprilias ahead of him. But you can't discount Marc, can you? You just can't discount him out of contention. 17 sprint wins to his name so far in his career.
Raul Fernandez makes his way to the front row of the grid. Love to know what's going through his mind right now as he gets set for this sprint in between the 2 factory Aprilia riders, who he must be mindful of staying out of the way of in this sprint. But of course, Fernandez himself will be targeting his first ever gold medal today.
Bit of work to do from that 3rd row of the grid for Fabio Di Giannantonio and Frankie Morbidelli. Digi's had the pace, no question. He was superb throughout practice, but tough coming from 7th place on the grid. Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Pablo Nieto Jack.
Yeah, I imagine Fabio probably the most disappointed of anybody from qualifying this morning. Just to reflect on qualifying, Pablo, we saw that he had to go out on his number 2 machine. Often the feeling between 1 and 2 can be a bit different. How much of an impact did that play on what we saw from Fabio?
Yeah, always, you have your favorite bike. But anyway, I think we are making a very good weekend. We know that it's very, very important, the start and the qualifying. And unfortunately, we are in 3rd row, no? But anyway, I think we are working very, very good. We have the pace, the rhythm. This track is one of the tracks that maybe you can make some overtakes and then try to make some risks in the first part of the race.
Fastest in all 3 practice sessions was Fabio. Going into qualifying, he was, I'm sure, hoping of fighting for the victory. Is that still possible from row 3?
It's going to be difficult, very difficult, but you never know. Maybe one of the tracks that maybe you can make something like that, it's this one. So I'm still believe. So it's very important. The rider it's important that he still believes that maybe he can do it. Very, very hard, but we will do our best.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Pablo Nieto. I'll let Lewis run through the grid. Interesting tyre choice from the starting run in second, Lewis.
Yes, Ralph Fernandez, the information was that he's gone for the medium rear tyre there. Let's see if that changes over the course of the next 15 minutes. It's an all Aprilia front row, as you mentioned, all Ducati second row, Di Gianantonio, Moreira and Morbidelli together on row 3. Then we have Acosta and Bastianini on the first of the KTMs, and Alex Rins on the first of the Yamahas. Ayagura missed out in Q1. He's 13th ahead of Brad Binder and Juan Mir. Marini 16th ahead of Jack Miller and Fabio Quartararo. Not a good weekend for the Frenchman on board the Yamaha. Maverick Vinales, Toprak Razgatlioglu and Mikhaili Pirro on row 7, and completing the grid, the second sprint experience after Motegi 2023 for Cal Crutchlow.
Yeah, you just mentioned what a chastening weekend it's been so far for Yamaha, in particular Fabio Quartararo, his lowest qualifying in 32 Grand Prix since he was deep on the grid at Phillip Island back in 2024. Not helped yesterday by a crash at turn 4, and certainly not helped by the fact that his new V4 powered M1 is grossly underpowered for the second longest straight on the Grand Prix calendar. Trying to keep himself cool. It is pretty hot down on this grid here in the Tuscany Mountains, and you can see off in the distance clear blue skies, but it's pole position number 11 for Marco Bezzecchi. His teammate, he'll be aware, Jorge Martin is the undisputed sprint king in MotoGP. Great to see Marco Melandri, 2002 250cc world champion, down on the grid. But let's go and get some thoughts from Klaus Noles, Diogo Moreira's crew chief. What a performance so far by the Brazilian. What can he do in the sprint of the Grand Prix tomorrow? Yeah,
what a weekend it's been. Into Q2 for the very first time. Now third row of the grid for the rookie Klaus. What are the hopes and expectations here? I imagine whatever he can come back with will be a great reward.
Yes, first of all, yes, we just want to take this experience. It's the first time that he's going to start, let's say, more in the middle, try to follow, let's say, more the front group. Yeah, the key is just to take the maximum out of this experience, keep learning, and yes, try to enjoy the race, because until now we always have to fight very hard from the first laps. Now we hope to have a decent rhythm, and yeah, we just keep the thing step by step.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, no question, he has got decent rhythm. He's been fast all weekend so far, has Diogo Moreira. Just seeking a bit of sanctuary from the blazing sunshine. Our close friends, Marc Marquez, fourth on the grid. Started, well, they're close to each other on the deck chairs, aren't they, at the moment? They're close to each other on the grid as well, fourth and fifth respectively. Best qualifying in 9 since his Mandalika success for the 21-year-old Spaniard Fermin Aldeguer. What at the moment is going through the mind of Cal Crutchlow? He would not have imagined being back in this high-pressure, nervy situation. I mean, he's been here so often, the 40-year-old Brit now, ahead of what is going to be his 180th Grand Prix start. He has done one sprint previously. He was on the sprint grid in Japan back in 2023, but yeah, by his rival standards, Cal's a bit of a sprint novice, isn't he? But he's done a pretty impressive job replacing the injured Johan Zarco. He was a second quicker this morning in qualifying than he managed yesterday. Zero expectations on the shoulders of Cal. Enjoy himself, bring the bike home, and yeah, let's help LCR celebrate their 30th anniversary weekend here in Mugello.
Yeah, you might have noticed with the leathers there. You'll see further when we get a look at the bike, a special livery to mark that occasion for Cal Crutchlow. This was after the session had finished, after the checkered flag came out in qualifying 1 earlier on today. Toprak Razgatlioglu almost looked like he was performing a bit of a stoppie there, didn't it, on the way into the final quarter into pit lane, and made a complete mess of his M1 Yamaha.
He'd just done a practice start. He'd done a practice start, which he was perfectly entitled to do on the exit beyond Eddy 2. And maybe that's just saw a whole bunch of temperature drop out of the tyres, maybe the brakes as well, as limbering up, just going through, I'm sure, his pre-prepped exercises under doctor's instructions with that recovering right shoulder is Marc Marquez. Off camera now. Let's go and get some thoughts out from the boss. The 2 factory Ducatis on the second row, 4th and 6th respectively. Davide Tarlossi with Jack.
Yeah, and as you guys said, no Ducati on the front row of the grid here at Mugello for the first time in 15 years, Davide. I mean, that must hurt around here of all places.
Yeah, it's a shame for us, but in the end, who's in front row, he deserved it because he was very, very fast. We'll see what it could be the race. I think that if Aprilia's lead on the first lap, it will be very difficult for us to overtake them, but we'll see. You know, in racing everything is possible.
We saw you pleading with Mark before qualifying to be calm, to ride within himself, and he ended up as the fastest Ducati. I guess him fighting his instincts is normally a lot harder than he imagines.
I think that Mark has the fastest lap possibility, but very difficult for him to be fast all the race. So we took this race and probably next one as a train, and then I'm confident that from Renault it will be 100%.
And just finally on Pecco, he has the pace. That first lap, I guess, is going to be so important.
I think, as I said, that if Pecco is closer to the top guys from the beginning, he could have a good race.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Davide Tardozzi. I mean, no Ducati has lapped Mugello faster than what Marc Marquez produced this morning. That 1:44.294, the best ever lap by a Ducati around Mugello. But on current Aprilia form, it's just simply not good enough. Not fast enough as we look once again at Ralph Fernandez. Fourth he was in the sprint in Catalonia a couple of weeks ago. That was only the 8th time in 65 sprints he's been inside the top 6. Going to be keeping a close eye, aren't we, on Fernandez and that rear tyre choice. There's Laura Bezzecchi then. That's a brilliant shot, keeping her brother cool under the umbrella. Now then, there's going to be big hopes of a Trackhouse medal at the end of the sprint with Ralph Fernandez on the front row. Igo's got good race pace as well, but he's 30. Let's get the thoughts of their boss, Davide Brivio, with Jack.
Davide, brilliant job by Raul this morning to get himself onto the front row. How much will Barcelona be in the back of his mind here, knowing that he's got Jorge to his left and Marco to his right?
I don't think it's anything different. I mean, there's been a lot of talking about this meeting, but we just say to the rider, just respect each other. What happened in Barcelona is that at the end of the day, Raul and Jorge both lost a lot of points and lost a missed opportunity. So something, I mean, it's not smart that happened, so we have to try to avoid that, at least between us. Then, of course, we know with the other competitor, the competition is hard, but at least between us, let's try to make it smooth. But then, honestly speaking, then they ride in a bike. They are on a bike, and I cannot guarantee that everything will be under control. But at least, I mean, you try to control and to, let's say, give an invitation to respect. That's all.
When the visor goes down, we know that it's a different game out there. Good luck, Davide.
Thank you. We need.
Precisely, Jack. Precisely. Yeah, you can have as many meetings, you can have as many discussions as you want behind the scenes to try and hammer home and drill into your riders. You can race hard, guys, but we expect it to be done with full and total respect. But it is a completely different ball game. Once that visor closes, once it revs up and the heart's pumping down the start finish right here in Mugello at over 360 kilometres an hour, well, anything can happen in MotoGP, and it so often does.
Yeah, I think it just underlines what an opportunity Aprilia realise they've got this year, that they're so desperate to try and stage manage this as best they can and maximise the points. But ultimately, when there's so much on the line for Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin fighting for World Championship, and who knows, Ralph Fernandez potentially fighting for his MotoGP future, they've got to be empowered to ride their own races. Of course, you don't want to see two of your own riders take each other off, but surely they've got to go for it.
What was the famous Ayrton Senna line? If you're
no longer go for a gap, you're not a racer.
Exactly, and that's what Ralph Fernandez would have been telling everybody in that instant at Turn 5 in Barcelona. Well, this is all part of the getting himself back to what he hopes will be peak 100% physical best. He'd have talked about this with the doctors, with his medics and with his physio team to get himself limbered up, stretch the ligaments, stretch the tendons, keep the muscles warm, and just get yourself as limbered up as you possibly can for the 11-lap sprint. It'd be a tough Italian Grand Prix tomorrow for Marc Marquez. 23 laps, and it's excruciating heat, and it's one of the most physical tracks on the Grand Prix calendar. Well, what a Saturday it's been so far for Aprilia. They'll be certainly hoping it's going to get better and better with the lockout of the front row of the grid. Let's get the thoughts of their boss, Paolo Bonora, with Jack.
Yeah, what a view this is, Paolo, as we stand alongside Jorge Martin. Aprilia's third, second and first across this front row of the grid, here in Mugello as well. Quite some sight.
Unbelievable result, Jack. For sure, it was, as I told you, fully unexpected, to be honest, because here we didn't score many podiums or did something very special in the past. But to be honest, the bike is quite different compared to the last one. but for sure during the qualifying, the time attack, most of the job was done by them. So congrats to our riders.
In terms of the dream that it is right now, it could be a nightmare if the words that you uttered to us yesterday are to come into effect. Total respect is what you asked for. Have you had to have a final word with the guys?
No. It was enough. As you say, correctly said, on Thursday we say only respect, total respect. Respect on the brand, for sure, it is the main goal. And everybody agrees in a very clear way. So it was enough. No words more than this.
Good luck.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Aprilia boss Paolo Bonora. Probably pinching himself right now, isn't he? Fresh, recently off their historic first ever lockout of the podium in the French Grand Prix at Le Mans. Fast forward a couple of Grand Prix, and now they're in uncharted territory once again, having locked out the top three on the grid. Well, Jorge Martin has already set a new top speed record. Well, this is interesting because our latest information was that Ralph Fernandez had indeed decided to be the only rider to be on the medium rear tyre. But as we can see from that graphic, Lewis, there has been a late change, and a significant one at that.
For Jorge Martin, and it worked out nicely for him in the sprint in Austin, didn't it, when he chased down Pecco Bagnaia on the final lap to win the sprint. Makes it even more interesting to find out if Marco Bezzecchi is also going to make that change, or whether he is going to stick to his guns, and he'll need to make a good start if he is going with the soft rear tyre. That will give him the benefit in the early stages of the sprint, but could potentially see him fall into the clutches of Fernandez and Martin in the latter stage. It's going to be fascinating.
The track temperature has rocketed to 44 degrees. Hottest condition of the weekend so far by a mile, and surely that has influenced the choice of both Fernandez and Martin on that front row. Well, we already known for quite some time that Brazil has a new motorsport superstar in the making, and confirming that has been Diogo Moreira here this weekend. 10th yesterday to get himself into Q2 for the first time. He went a couple of places better this morning in that decisive second qualifying session. What a performance that was, a 144.634 from Moreira. He's in the middle of that third row of the grid. You feel for Fabio Di Giannantonio this morning, because at the end of FP2 he had one of his GP26s had a mechanical failure. It put him under the cosh in qualifying. He went into Q2 with just the one bike and then hit a bit of traffic as well late on. So you don't feel like we've really seen the best of Fabio Di Giannantonio on this second day here in Mugello. So for the first time then in MotoGP history, we're talking about three Aprilias on the front row of the grid. We're talking about Jorge Martin, top speed record holder now in MotoGP. Ralph Fernandez on the front row of the grid for the 5th time in his MotoGP career, but on pole position. What a weekend it has been so far for the home crowd hero. Can Marco Bezzecchi now sprint to success for Aprilia in Mugello from pole position?